A warning to our viewers and listeners. This episode features profanity and references topics including death of a child, murder, and drug use. Listener discretion advised.
Welcome to the Meaning Mindset with Rabbi Ron. I am Rabbi Ron Lee Paz, your host here in California, in Calabasas, California. And my guest today is the former mobster, violent mobster for John Gotti's family, for the Gambino crime family, John Alite. He was in the news constantly for his notoriety, for his crimes, ultimately for his capture overseas in Brazil after running country to country, trying to escape the law, and ultimately, more recently, for the turnaround in his life. And I'll leave it to you to judge the veracity, the sincerity of it. It's a fascinating conversation with John. It's not about glorifying his past. It's really about coming to terms with it, wrestling with it. And I think you'll be fascinated, at the least, by this conversation with John Alite. We talk about the death of his daughter, Chelsea, a couple of years ago, to fentanyl poisoning, about his work in the community now, the greater community around the world, how he's working with young kids to try and steer them away from even what was seen as the glory of the life of the American mafioso as he was. So let's get straight to it without delay. This is my conversation with John Alite. Please leave your comments. Please share this, especially if there's somebody whom you think might benefit from the content of this episode. John, I see that you're sitting in the car in New Jersey where the sun's shining. Here, I'm in sunny California, and it's all gray. Anyway, good morning. It's good to see you. So we've never met, but I heard you on the radio. Ellie Hornick was sitting in for Michael Smerconish, and I was captivated by what you had to say, the questions he asked, and obviously with your long history, the connection between the two of you. I've since read two of your books. One is Darkest Hour, and the other that I finished last night or yesterday in the day is Mafia International. And I'm struck by the fact that few people have lives that are in broad terms, two chapters. Here's chapter one, and I'll call it, and this is really simplifying a human life, darkness. And chapter two is, I'll say, moving toward light. Does that fairly characterize your story? Obviously, it's not filling in even the slightest detail.
Yeah, people ask me what happened, and I said I brought God in my life, and so I have a different outlook on life that I did when I was involved in the street and in the wrong direction.
Before we go to the past, which obviously I want to cover, I want to talk about what you're doing today. What's filling the hours of your day generally?
Trying to give back to the community. I became a councilman in my borough in Englishtown, working with young kids, youth, troubled first-time and second-time offenders, people that have drug issues and rehab issues. I'm starting to bring them back on my show again the last couple of weeks, and I do a lot of pro-police work. I'm a big advocate of the men and women in blue, veterans. So I try to stay active with people that sacrifice their lives for the safety of our communities and for the freedom of our country.
I'm just thinking about the irony of it for anybody who knows your story. These were your enemies. These were your victims, the drug users, and these were your enemies, the police, and now you're advocating for both of them.
I mean, when you're a younger guy and you don't, and one of the things I speak about is confidence. If you are intelligent enough to go on the street, risk your life, hustle around, you can do that in a positive way, in a good direction. So I'm trying to wake up some of the young guys and girls that don't believe in themselves, and they step out in the street because they believe that's all they have. Similar to what I believe that's all I had. And through life's lessons, unfortunately for me, you learn the pain and suffering what the street really brings to you and the people around your life and the people that you get involved with in the street. And now I have a completely different outlook the last, I guess, say about 15, 20 years now. So I understand God, and I understand positive living and confidence.
So what do you say to a kid who's, I'm thinking about moments in your own life, in your story, where you were so committed to your fight. What do you say to a kid who says that he's too far gone for change?
Well, I tell that kid to look in the mirror first off, and look at what they see and like what they see, and know that they're worth living. They're worth really enjoying life, traveling outside of our zip codes. I use our zip codes as a big influence in our lives because there's a lot of peer pressure there. So if you can expose them to outside the world, I talk about the inner city. I work with the inner city kids a lot because I was from the inner city. And, if you can widen their horizons and, get them at concerts, get them at opera, bring them to a Broadway show, bring them to, get them a well-rounded understanding of the world, of some football games, some sporting events, tennis, golf, show them a better side of the world than our little neighborhoods. And I think that's a big influence to change their minds, for them to understand, wait a second, East New York, Brooklyn isn't the only place I could have been. Let me see what Amsterdam is, Germany, some other countries, cultures, and, some beautiful people, women, men around the world, and enjoy the what God gives us around the world, the ocean, the sea, and everything else that comes with it.
Yeah, you talk about zip codes. It reminds me of ancient history. You might know that in the ancient world, I think about ancient Middle East, which we call the ancient Near East, the belief was, before monotheism, the belief was that you lived in a territory and you didn't leave that territory. People didn't travel. They didn't cross borders, precisely because they believed in the God that protected them in that place. And you didn't cross the board because your God wouldn't travel with you. So that was a dangerous, vantage point. When you stood on a boundary, you stayed on one side of it and didn't venture to the other. Maybe that's a way to think about this with these kids as well, which is, listen, first of all, you and I have this belief in a universally present God, meaning you're safe and you're protected and you're loved. But secondly, this place is probably the most dangerous place you can be. Cross the border.
Yeah, I'm again, we could talk, one of the things, and I'm very political. I lost my daughter to fentanyl. So I understand what the pain is. I know how many families have been suffering and hurt. So when I talk about the political forum and some of these senators and congressmen that are going to El Salvador today and fighting for the rights of illegal immigrants that are coming here, not the right way, the correct way, I'm against it because there's so many people in this country that you want to help start here. There's so many young kids that are suffering in our neighborhoods that they're not reaching out and putting their hand out from. There's so many veterans that are 50,000 of them all over the street, have some mental and drug issues and abuse that they're not helping. You have victims of crimes that are being raped and killed that they're not helping. They're not helping their own constituents, but they're going out of this country concerned about people that are involved with gang activity, which they really don't understand, but I do because I was involved with these guys. And I know the mindset of them. And if you want to come into this country, enjoy the luxuries and the benefits of this country, you have to do it the right way. You can't just go to Disney World and want to go on a ride and cut the line. That's not life. It's not fair to the people that are doing it the right way. And, and I feel bad for the people that are suffering in other countries, but so is my family in Albania. They want to come into this country. They got to come in the legal way. I shouldn't influence them. Hey, come illegal. Don't get your vaccine, spread disease, possibly bring terrorists in here and drugs and weapons. And, you're being, rewarded for it. That's not life, and I took those shortcuts. So I know better than anybody. So anybody, when you take those shortcuts, I'm sorry, that's not the right way to live. I was wrong what I did. And when I watch people influence other people, our government officials to influence people to come in and do it the wrong way, they shouldn't be in Congress or senators or be involved in our government. They took an oath to protect this country.
Let's go to something more personal. I take your point, but your daughter died of drugs. I'm so sorry for your loss. As you know, as a clergyman, as a rabbi, I deal with loss frequently, and rarely, but it does happen, I deal with the loss of young people. That's obviously the most difficult thing to bear. And when I deal with the loss of young people, I'd say over the years, and this is nearly 30 years, it's almost always been on the basis of drugs and alcohol, mostly. What did that do to you? That was the most personal affront to a human being, the loss of a child. How did that affect you in light of what you did? You know, here she died of a drug that was illegally traded. She was poisoned, and you were part of that as part of your life. That was part of the money that you earned. I don't mean fentanyl, but I mean drugs that killed people, killed their children.
Well, you know, when we go to a bar, we order a drink,
Right.
and somebody has a drink. They're not supposed to die. But if somebody puts arsenic in, they're going to pass. My daughter was murdered. She wasn't partying all night and day, and most of these kids and people that are dying from fentanyl are being poisoned and murdered. They're not, if they're asking for the drug, that's not murder. If they're not asking for the drug, they're being murdered.
Correct.
Now, I'm not justifying any drug dealer or myself, but if somebody asked for cocaine and we sold it, or somebody selling it now, although I try to influence people not to sell drugs, they're not intentionally killing somebody. But when you're putting something in a drug that they're unaware of that's there, and it's something as lethal as fentanyl, you're intentionally killing that person for the idea that if they survive, I'm going to addict them to it and I'm going to make some profit. But the level of death is incredible. This is more people dying from fentanyl in the last couple of years than all our wars combined.
Right.
And I see people talking, and listen, I wake up every morning and in pain for the loss of my daughter. I wake up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, and I in pain thinking about my daughter. And everybody lost a child, whether it was fentanyl or any other way. They know what I'm talking about with the pain that never goes away. And I lean a lot on God. And I guess somewhere, even though we don't understand it, there's a purpose for it. Because of my daughter's death, I'm involved extremely with the fight against fentanyl, with a lot of organizations that I try to attend some of their meetings, and Dee Gillen is one that I talk about on a constant basis. Black Poster Project. She's an incredible woman that lost her son. And she's, in his memory, Scott always said he wanted to be somebody that was special in the world. And when Dee was doing an interview a couple of weeks ago, she didn't realize what she was saying, and he became such an influence around the world from heaven through his mom that she's doing such great work for the parents that lost their children, for the people that are fighting not to lose their kids from drugs. So he did become someone that for eternity God will knows, and put so many people in her arms and his arms. So it's a pain that we all unfortunately know as parents when you lose a child.
Yeah, of course. It's a pain that changes your own identity. It's not just the loss of a person whom you loved. I see that people who lose children are transformed in a way that is obviously unique to grief and to loss. Not necessarily that they can't find happiness again, but that they're changed. There's no question about it, not to simplify a loss like that. John, I want to ask you, I found reading your story difficult. I found the brutality of it really difficult to stomach, to be honest. I mean, the baseball bats to people's skulls, and just the graphic description of the violence. And one of the things that I found the hardest, I was telling my wife, was the anger, the vitriol, the chaos in your life as a child. There's one scene in Darkest Hour that you describe when your dad comes home from work. I thought every scene of your dad coming home from work was terrifying. I could imagine what the kids felt like, or tried to imagine what your mother felt like when she brought home the wrong bread from the wrong bakery and he threw the table over against the wall. I remember that description. And all of you are terrified. And of course, your sister has to clean it up. But to live with that, so I felt like there was this combination of you adoring your dad, if I'm right, admiring your dad, loving your dad deeply, and also being terrified of him. And you talked about the brutality and you described the kind of violence that was in your life right from the beginning. How do you look back on that?
Well, I love my dad, and I look at it as realistic. None of us come from the perfect household. All he knew coming from a communist country was violence and survival. He wasn't school educated. He taught me what he thought would keep me safe and I would survive, which actually did keep me safe and kept me alive. In retrospect, he loved us. He hugged us. He was very affectionate. But on the other hand, it wasn't just him. The way I was raised in a Catholic church. I wasn't baptized Catholic at the time. We were abused, all my friends, by a priest.
Right.
That abused us. But on the other hand, there were a lot of priests that helped save my life. So I look at everybody as individuals. I grew up in a neighborhood where I watched death early on as a young guy, watching people being beat, shot, killed. Some of my people that were biggest influences on me were involved in the Mafia. They were street guys, famous street guys, bosses. So unfortunately, that was my schooling, and my rearing ages as a child were just all violence. And that's all I understood, that if you're not violent, you're not going to survive. And if you're not on the street hustling, you're not going to make it through life. And these were all, obviously wrong beliefs. It took me a lot of years to put it together and get my life right. And I closed my heart off, I guess, to what I was doing as a detachment, where you believe that what you're doing is honorable and it's right. And there's no excuses for it. I don't try to find excuses for it. I have a hard time myself getting through what I did in the past. I can't erase it, but I do use it. And maybe that was the will of God to show me that, so I can save kids' lives now, or maybe it was just my path, whether I like it or not. I have to deal with it till the day I die, and some of the consequences that came with it. So again, for me, there's never going to be an excuse about, I was manipulated or poor me, or so many families are raised in bad situations without parents, or poverty, or drug addicts, and we need to be able to be strong, overcome it mentally, find the confidence of if it ain't at home, it's through somebody that is directing you in a good way to believe in yourself. And I believe in school that they should start teaching kids at a very young age, 4 and 5 years old, about the faith in themselves, God, and confidence. Confidence is huge. I think if you teach confidence, you'll keep people off the street. You'll teach them that they're worth going in a different direction. And whether you don't have to be a doctor, you can be, can take up a trade. You can be in computers. You can be a truck driver, but have confidence in yourself to do the right thing with your life and for your neighbor and for the next person. There's nothing wrong with saying good morning. And a simple thing, driving a car. You see people race; they don't let you in front of them, like they're losing $100 if they
Right.
do. You got to ask yourself, why are people that way? What's the anger issue or the insecurity that they don't just say with a smile, go ahead, go in front of me, not a problem.
So who did that for you? All I know from your story is of the darkness and the desperation to be on top on the street, and that was through violence to make yourself feared. But were there any influences that were positive? Was anybody trying to pull you in a different direction?
At a young age, there were different people actually to try to help me. And unlike what people think, there were a lot of good prisoners in jail that are in a position where I was, where you start changing your life and understanding, I just ruined my life here. and you start talking to younger guys in jail, and there were some older guys that were in prison, and we called old heads or old G's, and they try to talk to you, and you don't want to hear it, even from them. And these are serious guys that are doing life or doing, 30 years, and they're trying to do the right thing from prison. And, they have, some of them have reached a point in their life where they know they're either never getting out or they're going to get out at a very old age. And they start trying to reach some of the younger guys. And at that time, there were a couple of guys that tried to reach me. I just didn't want to hear it at that time because you're so embedded in that life. And, I don't want to use the word brainwash because I think you kind of brainwash yourself in it at some point. I think you're just not ready or receptive because you're too scared to deal with everything. It's like turning your clothes inside out and wringing it out. And there's so much psychological things that you got to deal with, and you don't want to face them yourself, I guess. But then there was some of them. Then there was two priests, actually, one in a prison in MCC, great guy. And I talked to him about the priest that ruined a lot of our lives. And, I don't judge people by groups. I don't judge police officers by groups.
Right.
I judge an individual by the way they behave and their insecurities or their confidences. And then I had another priest in 1994 that I met that told me truthfully, he says, I'm married. I shouldn't be. Obviously, I'm a priest. But I believe in serving God. I believe in helping somebody like you. And I also believe that I should be able to choose love also and share love with an individual. So they had some big influences on me. And then later on in life, I speak about it all the time. There's an ex-FBI guy, Dave Gentile, that was very good to me. We met in hockey with our kids, and we developed a very good friendship. Neither one of us betrayed each other's confidence in the world we were in. But he was trying to show me a different world and show me kindness and strength in a different way. And he brought me around some positive people. And then after that, there's a ton of law enforcement that have been very good to me over the years and friendships. Parole officer that was very good to me, Sharon O'Brien. A woman, Regina Eldridge, that was a warden in the prison, believe it or not. They show you tough love, but at the same time, they have a way of showing you to, be confident in yourself. So I think you get it in a lot of strange places that you don't think you would get it in, because, I declared war on the police department and as a kid, because I thought that was the right way. And then as you get a little more mature and you understand life, things aren't as, black and white as people believe. And then you start understanding about human beings, and they have families and kids, and they're good people. And then there's abusive people on all sides, whether it's the street guys, law enforcement, priests. They abuse their power, take advantage of people. So, you start to mature and understand life, and so it's not that cut and dry like that. And the people that helped me, I don't forget about. And I talk, and I try to be as honest as possible when I talk about myself and some of the bad things that I did. And then I also, some of the people, like I said, although I was punished by, people are very shocked to see that some of the people that actually prosecuted me and locked me up or involved in locking me up are my friends at this point in my life. That we go out, we socialize, and they're amazed to see that. And I don't really know why they're amazed. We understand each other because of where we've both been, and we respect each other for our journeys. And again, I respect people for who they are and how they treat me and how they treat my family and my children. And so I just learned to be more open to the world, and to, my legacy one day is going to be, some of the bad things I did, or is it going to be my second part of my life? I don't say chapter, I say a new book.
Okay.
Of who I am. And I use the past because it was so bad, but I can use it in such a good way that other people can't have that influence. And when I got into politics, it's the same. The senators and congressmen and different representatives, they're clueless of the things I understand about cartels, about drugs, about murder, about the suffering about jails, the abuse of the system, and I know both sides and all sides of these things, so I can relate to a lot of this that they're so naive to, and their ideologies are so naive and almost it's ridiculous, some of the paths and thinking. So when I do these talks, or when I got involved politically, or I'm a big Trump guy. Everybody knows I love the president. I love his hard work. I love his backbone and his shoulders. No matter what people try to do to him, he continues forward. And I think it's whether you like him or not, as any individual, you want to be a tenth of a man of strength that he has. So people see me talk about him and Jack Ciattarelli running for governor in New Jersey. They have big influences on me, and not because of the age. It does not really. We're about the same age, or a couple of years older as I guess the president, but it's the way they handle themselves and carry themselves with such confidence, and their beliefs are very important to them, and which made me really look at people like that and want to follow them and have some sort of personality as them of strength and honor, dignity, and patriotism towards this country is very important to me.
Go again. I want to dig deeper to the personal part. You have a story and you go to sleep at night with images in your head that most of us, thank God, don't have. And I know that there are ways to block things out, or there are ways to process them. What do you do with the wreckage of the early years of your life? What do you do with the unforgivable and the unforgiven because there wasn't somebody there to accept the apology, to offer the forgiveness? How do you handle that?
Go to church, talk to God. He's going to judge me. He's going to lead me. He's going to direct me. Talk to my priest. And just, again, I can torture myself every day, but I'm not going to change. If I ran that red light on the way over to a studio, I can't change that. I ran it. You could just do like what the president says, be a better you every day. There's no way to go backwards. Just every day, try to be a better you and move forward, try to save a life and try to help a life. Try to be that person that, contributes to this country in a positive way. And any way I can do that is what I do now. And again, at night, you have some hard nights. You can't sleep. If somebody says something different, there's a lot of people that try to influence me to do the wrong thing, or they try to entice me or antagonize me. There's a lot of antagonists out there that don't want to see me succeed. But this isn't about me, and I've said it 100 times over. This is about every kid that I will disappoint, that I help, and show them if I can do it, you guys can do it, you girls can do it. At any time in your life, when you have the will, you can wake up and say, listen, I'm going in the right direction for now on. I'm not going to do what I used to do. I'm going to work at it, and it's not easy. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's very difficult because everybody's throwing everything at you, challenging you in a negative way, and attacking you. You got to be able to say, I'll sustain it, and I'll keep doing positive things, and have faith in the Lord. And those are the things I do now.
What about your conversations with your kids?
I'm very open with my kids. I've always been very open with my kids. I talk to my kids about how easy, and I talk to students, and I've talked to schools, and I've talked to a million different places. I tell them, listen, it's very easy to live life every single day in a good manner. You make that one split second mistake, it can ruin your life forever. So that goes for everybody, even people that are living a good life. You could be the nicest, church going, loving father person, and you go to a bar one night and drink 5 drinks, and you make a bad decision, get in the car, and you kill somebody. And, your life's finished after that. It's never the same. So it's those decisions and those consequences of your action are very important, that every second of your life, make sure that you take that split second and rethink something before you do it. And those are the turning points of someone's lives. And I've used O.J. Simpson as one of my points of speaking about. The man had everything going for him in his life, and couldn't control his temperament, his feelings, or whatever else. And whether he committed those horrific crimes or not, later on he did commit crimes, and he ended up spending years in prisons. This is a guy that people would have done anything to have been in his shoes to live the life he had as a movie star,
right?
Heisman Trophy winner, as a hell of a ball player, actor. He had the ultimate life, and split second decision destroyed his life and many others. So you have to just be vigilant on a constant basis, and your ego is very, very important to get rid of your ego and humble yourself. And the more you can do that, the more you can look at yourself and laugh, joke at yourself, joke about yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Right.
And, and it's the only way you're going to live a good life, really.
John, have you ever in all the years come face to face with the families of the victims?
Yes. When I first came home, actually from prison, I've spoke about this, not even when I came home, I started reaching out to some of the families. Some of them would speak to me, some of them didn't. One particular, and I don't want to say her name because she's obviously, it's very personal. Her father was one of the victims of people that got killed. And she was speaking to me on a regular basis. She wanted to give testimony on my behalf at sentencing. She wanted to write a letter to the judge on my behalf. I didn't allow it. I said that people would think I'd be manipulating her forever. I would never be able to prove to anybody that my intentions were good. She wasn't happy about that, but after I got out of jail, we maintained a friendship. She had a couple situations where actually she called me when she was in trouble. And she has her own family and children. So we talked about the life. We cried together. We talked about the life that her father led, I led, and other guys like us led, that it's misery for all of us. Break the chain of conduct. One of the problems I have with a lot of the mob guys are their ego comes before their own children. They won't be honest with their own kids because they want the kids to believe they're something that they really weren't, or exaggerating that they were these kind of self-image tough guys. And instead of saying, I'm going to make sure my child doesn't lead the life that some of us have, they're too selfish, I guess is the word, or they can't face their own, insecurities. So they, lie to their kids, and the kids believe in it. And then they go down the same path because the father was too stupid or jealous or insecure to tell them the truth, that this is a wasted life, to read the small print, like I tell everybody, because when you read the small print, then you'll see really the suffering that goes on, not the cause, the woman, the money, and the nonsense that you can't take with you at the end of your life.
So you raise a lot of issues in what you just said. And you talked about ego. And one of the questions I have, because I've been thinking about this since reading your work, how do you separate? How have you done that work? That's difficult. That's a lifetime of work, right? Coming into relationship with who we are versus our ego, who we want the world to think we are, our insecurities. We don't just erase those because we made a decision to, especially the stuff that came to us in our childhood. And boy, did you have that reasons to be insecure before you built the fist that would make you physically secure. How did you, and I don't know if it's possible, how did you turn off the vicious anger that you had early in your life to become the calm, giving, generous person that you seem to be? Does that turn off, or do you still battle with it?
No, I don't think that ever turns off. People say to me, "Oh, I heard you cursing and yelling," and I laugh. And I'm a human being. I'm not a robot. I don't do things that I used to do. People want me to. I mean, I've been challenged by 10 and 15 guys, and I don't know how many times. That it's not intimidating to me. I just don't want to hurt them anymore.
But separate from your relationship to people around you, what about in yourself? What about your own relationship to the same anger that had you, breaking people's heads and faces? What did you do with that in your life?
Well, it's always going to be somewhat there, but you learn to deal with it, and you learn to understand yourself that this is not the way to behave. Unless it's somebody trying to harm or kill your family, I guess that'll never come out on me ever again. I've learned the mistakes of my personality, of how I grew up, my insecurities, the way that I thought the violence was normal and okay, that it isn't. I went to therapy. I work out more mentally than I do physically. I talk to positive people that have a very good influence over my people, my friends that I stay with. I stay with a neurosurgeon, one of my best friends, Dr. Tuskegee. And when I stay with gentlemen like that, and good people, everyday people, and I surround myself with very good influences, which means a lot. When you start, and that's why I said the influence of who these young kids are staying with and their peer pressure. If they stay with, they always say this, and we all hear the same thing. If you're staying with 10 girls that are girls that work in a strip club, and you're the 11th, everybody assumes you're that girl in the strip club, and it becomes comfortable surroundings because you're with those girls. And I'm not knocking them, because we all have, deal with our own judgment. I just believe you lose a little piece of your soul every day when you sacrifice something for money. And, they could be the greatest girls around, but I think to be doing that, they're losing a little bit of themselves. No different than what I used to do for a living. You're losing a piece of yourself every day. So you have to learn to, like any other exercise, work at, no different than somebody that has a drug problem or an alcohol problem. Every day, just get through today. And that's how I think. Every day, just get through today, and we worry about tomorrow. And it's a lot easier to do it that way. And again, your ego is very important. You got to know that if you can be you without the ego, you'll have a good life. And God, again, it's a big influence on the way I think and live, and church, and some of the people that go to church with me, and that also influence me and give me the confidence to continue. I mean, just recently I had a heckler at one of our town hall meetings, and I didn't say much. My whole town actually did. That were at the meeting verbally went after them. And, these are people that are not happy with their lives when they do this. So, I understand that now. Back then I didn't. I guess immaturity and the, not controlling my impulses, which I learned to control now. So I think this is all contributes to being a different person. And, it's not, you could say you're redeemed and redemption, but 1 year doesn't do it. You got to have a track record and do what I've been doing for almost 15 years. And when you do that, people will believe in you. And I tell people, it took me a long time to get where I got, and it took me a very short time to ruin my life. So at this point, I love where I'm at in my life. I love the influence of being able to, people contacting me and say, thank you so much for saving my life. People I never met in my life are saying that to me. So it's a good feeling knowing that you're doing something good and you're trying to influence people in the right way, not in a bad way. So,
yeah, well, clearly, there may be skeptics. There always will be, and you live your life nonetheless, staying true to yourself. What about God? Everybody has a different concept of God. Either it's because their rabbi, priest, teacher, parent gave it to them, but you found it. You discovered it out of your own need, let's say, at the right time in your life. What's your understanding of your relationship to God right now in relation to the totality of your life? The bad and the very good.
Actually, I never found God when I needed him. I tried.
Much later.
And I guess, yeah, when I went, most people, when they go to prison, I know a lot of guys, they start reading the Bible every day. They start talking, for lack of a better word, gibberish. They don't really believe in the Bible. They don't believe in the priest. They don't believe in the church. They don't make the sacrifices that I believe you need to really be truthful and true to God and to yourself. And I couldn't find them all those years when I was suffering in prisons. I just thought it was people that were weak and they were using them as a crutch. And then they come home and they're right back at it again, committing crimes, doing drugs, running around. But when my daughter passed, is when I did find God. And it's usually when people are angry at God. That's really when I really found him deeply. And certain things happened when my daughter passed that were just not explainable. And, when I was, very upset, obviously emotional,
sure.
In rooms, and God did certain things that came to me that is just not explainable.
Do you mind talking about that? Or is it too personal? You don't have to.
No, I can talk about some of the incidences.
I just think it might help somebody.
Well, it took me a couple months to go up in a room and clean a room. and she lived with me, my daughter, and I didn't even know the television worked upstairs. I was on the opposite side of the room, going in her closet, and obviously I was very emotional, upset. I'm cleaning out her closet and talking to her and asking for signs and praying. At this point, I am going to church. I am praying a lot, and the TV went on. The remote control was on the other side of the room. I didn't even know if the TV ever worked prior to that because she never watched TV upstairs. She's always with me downstairs. So I actually thought it didn't work. But that that was one sign. Another was 2 years in a row on her birthday. I was in Las Vegas and I went outside and I was very upset. Called my sister about all these young kids. They're enjoying Las Vegas. I was filming a movie. And she said, John, your daughter's with you. And I said, yeah, I know, but, I questioning God and, very upset. And I went back into the restaurant and I was sitting at a table and it was full. And I got up to give my seat to a young lady and her husband. There was only one seat there. And she sat down, we started talking, and the waiter came over and asked her for identification. But it was breakfast time. But in Vegas, you can always drink, I guess. And so she started talking. She didn't have her identification on her. And I asked her when her birthday was, and she said August 14th, 1992, the same date as my daughter. Mm. So it happened the following year the same way. I was in a cafe. The girl waiting on me was a young kid. She went to change. I came back out, and I go, where you going? You're all dressed. And I met her once before. She was a young kid. She goes, today's my birthday. And so on the short version is a little more longer version of I was going somewhere else. I changed direction. I walked a half a mile to this particular place. So those things happen, and people could say, well, it's coincidental, but those are really long shot coincidences if they say that. And another day I was sitting in a room. I turned both light switches off. I was watching videos of me and my daughter and the baby, and same thing, asking for, why hasn't she reached out to me recently? And not drinking. I don't use drugs. And the one light went on. 10 seconds later, the other light went on. So if somebody could give me an explanation for these things, then I would say, okay, you want to argue or you're an atheist and you don't believe in the Lord, then you explain those things to me. So there's more than that. I can continue. Sure. There were a lot of signs for me with my daughter that really helped me to believe that if somebody could give me any kind of scientific explanation for that, I'm willing to listen to it. But I don't know of any or see any of that somebody can question those things. So.
Yeah. What about afterlife spiritual encounters with anybody else in your story? Have you ever had anything like that?
Growing up as a kid, my daughter was just born 1992. A friend of mine was going through a divorce, and it was about 12 midnight. It was a very rainy day, and we hung up. We talked about going to Ocean City, Maryland. We were going to see each other the next week. We grew up since we're kids. We were all best friends, me and a couple of guys. And about 3 a.m, I woke up in the middle of the night. I called my mother, and I says, I don't know, I got a bad feeling something's wrong. Is everybody okay? She said, yes. Everybody's ready to go to bed. I go, am I asking if everybody was home? My sisters, my brother, my parent, my father. Yeah, everybody's home. Go to bed, John. It's just, you're just having a bad dream or something. I woke up about an hour and a half later again, very bad feeling. And at about 5:30, 6 in the morning, my mother calls me up, hysterical, crying. And I says, what's the matter? She said, Joey went out last night after he told me he was going to sleep to drive some girl home. And he flipped his car in the rain and passed away. Mm. So how I knew that, I don't know. How I woke up, probably woke up because she called me 5:36. So he probably died right when I woke up around 3 a.m. Mm-hmm. And somehow I knew that she died. And as a young kid, my aunt, my grandfather's sister lived upstairs like my grandma, and she passed. And I didn't want to go to I was 10 years older, so I didn't go to the wake or funeral. I couldn't go. And I was laying on the couch, and she came. I was screaming and running from my mother's room. And she says, it's okay that you didn't go because her son was mad at me for not going. And I swore it was her. And they just kept saying you were probably asleep and it was a dream. But who knows? So I've had some encounters in the past besides.
John, it's a fascinating life. What's interesting to me more than anything is your intentional living. It seems to me, I take you at your word, that you're really waking up every day with purpose, and that purpose is positive, and that you're creating for yourself in relation to God, in relation to the mirror, yourself, and to your daughter, who I believe is still in your life, and to your kids, and to any of the people in the world who will be influenced by you, and that's a lot. They say that every person influences on average 18,000 people in their lifetime. Some people many, many more. Some people estimate as hundreds of thousands. I mean, think about the number of people who have been affected negatively, and now the number of people who are affected positively by your intentional living. What do you think about legacy when you talk about, we don't know how long we're going to live at any point in our life. How much do you think about that?
I think about it all the time because I know, I hate to use the word fan base, but people that know me around the world, I've done magazine covers in Germany and Italy and different places that so many people contact me. So I know that I have a big following, and I know I can either drag them down into the street or I can bring them up to a positive life. So, my legacy, it's important to me to know that I finished out my life the right way, the proper way, with respect and honor and family values and some of the things that I was raised initially as that I lost on my path. And so, when you continue, and like, what I said earlier, I'm not a perfect human being. When people say, well, I won't sit here and lie and say I don't yell and lose my temper before in the last 15 years. I've done it, and then, I talk to people, and then I feel bad, and I'm like, but I don't react nowhere near like I did before, and I say, why did I say that stupid thing? Why did I yell? And, I'm a human being, I'm not perfect, but my actions are actually perfect. I'm not doing anything at all in the level of what I used to do. And I try to go about my life every day, waking up, saying I'm going to do something positive for people. I try to donate to a lot of organizations. I try to work for Cancer for Kids and bring gifts, and St. Jude's and veterans organizations. And I try to do as much as I can. And, I don't want to say to make up for what I did in the past, because you can't do that. But just to go, every day and try to do something positive where people say to me, you know what, John, there's so many bad people, not bad people, good people that make bad mistakes. And when they see me doing it, I know I have a good influence on a lot of those street kids. The ones that are doing the right thing, I think my influence is, like I said earlier, you can be doing the right thing every day. It only takes one dumb mistake that'll change your life. So that's what I tell them when I speak to them. You guys are on the right path. You're going to college. You're going to work. You have kids. When you get that road rage and you have an argument, all of a sudden you jump out of the car and you do something crazy that is not really your personality, changes your life forever. Or when you're arguing with somebody, chasing them back and forth in a car, and you hit somebody else by accident. These things are things people think will never happen to them. There was a young guy that just got married, and he had a couple of drinks, never drank in his life, and he got into an accident. This was about 5 years ago. He killed the passenger of the other car, who was pregnant with a baby and a woman. So now this is an individual he was a banker at the time. And devastating. He lost his own family after that. Those poor girls lost their life, and the baby and their family was suffering. So unfortunately, this is life, right? And every single decision you make, you must think about prior. So there's consequences to those actions. And as much as I can influence the kids that are on the street because they respect my past life, and I try to tell them, listen, get it together now so you can enjoy your life. And, hopefully, like I do, I just try to keep influencing more and more people. And the people that hate and want to see me do bad, those are the people that, I guess the devil is in them, that, they want to try to ruin, not my happiness, trying to ruin every kid's happiness you're trying to help. It's a weird behavior on people that do that. Like, what's their agenda? I can't explain it because I'm not them. But, they harass you on a constant basis. And whatever their insecurity is to do that. And there's a guy now that I've been talking about, and that he won't leave me alone in over 10 years, this guy Casparosa, who claims he's a journalist but never worked as nowhere, never went to school anywhere, never published anything, doesn't have a job, lives in his mother's house at 40 years old. Very, very strange behavior. And he won't stop the harassment for years, following me to houses, to my, my family, harassing me before my daughter passed, after my daughter passed, to really some terrible things that you got to say, what's wrong with this guy mentally? That at this point, if you wanted to write something, you would have did it in 6 months. If you wanted to write a book, or just craziness. He's something off, almost serialistic about his behavior. I'm not sure what it is, but I spoke to some psychologists about it, but obviously it's something very mentally off and ill, and no relationship. He's asexual, no boy friends, no girlfriends, no social life. So, I can't let these people try to drag me down. They try, and they're trying to get reactions out of me. He put some fake letters out and try to threaten people if they don't set me up. He's going to expose them for things. And he contacted cold case squads just recently. He did something about a shooting in another city, and he's trying to claim it was me. I mean, just crazy, over the top stuff. That this is not a journalist or educated guy that went to school to be a journalist, or, he tries to sell that nonsense I believe it was 11 years now he hasn't stopped doing this to me. So, I mean, it's something obviously is very off.
Sure. John, I want to ask you, one of the questions that I'm sure you get asked a lot is, why did you not take witness protection and disappear and remain safe? Why did you expose yourself for the rest of your life to potential harm?
The prosecutor that did that show with me, Ellie Hornick, brings it up, actually. I was in a Brazilian penitentiary, so anybody who's educated knows I didn't want to cooperate. I believed in the life. I spent millions of dollars on attorneys, on investigators, sat in a third world concentration camp for almost 3 years, being beat, suffering, not to betray the mafia. But while I was sitting there, I was never caught with anything. So anybody that's listening, that's a legal scholar or has access to attorney can check this. I was never caught on videos or audios or with any kind of weaponry or any drug. I was given up and betrayed by 2 crime families. The Bonanno family, the boss was wearing a wire, and all his captains started cooperating. I was given up by their associates, their friends. The Gambino family, tons of them were meeting with the government while I was in those penitentiaries, breaking all the rules of La Cosa Nostra and the American Mafia. At that point, I started to second guess. Obviously, sitting in those penitentiaries, and these guys are all cooperating, giving information, and making deals and betraying me. So I've always said the same. I didn't betray them; they betrayed me. I didn't betray the life; they did. And it woke me up to say, "Oh my God, what was I thinking all my life to believe in this nonsense?" And when I came back to the United States, when I was extradited, I was facing the death penalty and spending years being tortured in those jails. I had a lot of contact with the paperwork of what everybody was doing, news articles and other things that, when I was reading, I was shaking my head like, how did I ever buy into this life before? And when I was in prison, a guard was attacked at the same time, and I jumped in for the guard, who was an ex-veteran. I don't think he needed me, to be honest with you, but it was prisoners that had life sentences. And I think that's where it started my change of life. And I said, no, I'm not that guy that wants to allow that guy to get stabbed up or killed in a prison. He's a veteran. He reminded me of my dad. Nice guy, tough guy. And I think that was the first time I really made a move to change my life. And that was about 20 years ago. He wrote a letter, came to court for me, testifying about what I did for him. And I said, I'm never going to turn back. I'm just going to move forward. So why would I go into witness protection against guys that betrayed me? I didn't betray them. I just fired back at the guys that were betraying me.
So you don't worry these days. You don't look over your shoulder.
Not at all. I live my life by God. I say it all, always. I do what I do for a living, and I'm not going to worry about that. I didn't worry about it when I was in that life. I've been shot up, I've been stabbed up, I've been battered, I've been hit with cars, I've got people try to shoot me and the guns didn't go off, and I took that same gun and shot at them, and it went off. So God did something with that. The guy clicked the gun twice at my head at the time. So I fully give my life to God, honestly. And what's going to be is going to be, and I just going to live a positive life.
Yeah, sounds like you're doing it. There's, from a religious point of view, which is, my worldview, you have, whether it's Catholic or Jewish, you Christian or Jewish, you have all these stories. Obviously, Islam has its own, but I don't know them. I'm more familiar with the ones that come out of these two faith traditions. And you have stories of redemption and this idea that we can actually change. And that ultimately what we're left with is that let's say from a Jewish perspective, you have to do something called tshuva. I don't know if you've heard that term. And tshuva is, first of all, acknowledgement of what you've done, every aspect of what you've done. The second is apology, speaking to the person. Obviously, in the case of murder, that's impossible and makes this problematic. And the third is to sincerely change the path of your life. And ultimately, what we realize is, in your case, it's not my place to judge you, John. It's not anybody's place to judge you unless they have a relationship to you that I don't have. I say, as you're a man who believes in God, as I am as well, I say that's between you and God. What I see is a man who has acknowledged what he's done, not the apology. I can't be responsible for that. That's your story, the relationship to God. But ultimately, it's between you and God. And in the afterlife, there's some people who say that a necessary part of this process, these are Christian theologians and Jewish theologians, say part of that is suffering. Well, my assumption, especially with the loss of your daughter, is you've had plenty of that. I don't want to say what is and isn't the right suffering for another human being. But my assumption is that you're aware also that ultimately your reconciliation is between you and God.
Yeah, one thing the prosecutor Ellie Hornick said on his show when he was speaking to me on the podcast, in the radio show, is, and anybody who knows me, I don't make excuses for my life. I don't blame people for bringing me into the mob life. I don't blame my father. I don't blame anybody. So when I'm talking to kids, I tell everybody the same. If you really truly want to change, accept what you did. It's hard for us to accept what we did. And, but I accept everything I did because I want to be a different person. And if I make excuses, and one of them is, and I'm very upfront about it, is, and the prosecutor at sentencing spoke about it, some of the guys that were involved that got killed by me and involved with the murders with me were gang rapists. They were convicted, beat a girl half to death, shot a boyfriend, shot another guy that was a witness. Now, I'm the first guy to tell you, I have never changed my thought pattern about somebody that did that. I can't say that I can sit here with God and say, I know I'm not God. I know I shouldn't have made the decision from. But I regretted everything I've done in my past, except that, to be honest. And that's without me being a phony, without me lying. And I wish I didn't commit murders. I wish I wasn't involved in the mafia. I never harmed a woman or a child that way. I was involved in the mob world, and I'm not making excuses for what I did. Like I said, I lived a bad life, and I'll accept that. I hope at one time I can get to the point where I can say about these guys that, gang raped a girl or beat her half to death. But I'm not there yet. I don't know if I'll ever be there. Maybe that's just not part of who I am, and I guess I'll have to deal with God at some point about that also. But I don't make, again, I say what I've done very openly, and I don't hide it, I don't lie, I don't sugarcoat it. I just accept that I had a bad life, and I wish I didn't have that life, but I did, so I can't change it. I just accept what I did and what I can say, that I truthfully, in front of the Lord, in front of you, in front of the camera, tell you what I do feel bad for, and some of the things I'm not at that point that I could say I feel bad for. And people are going to judge me, I know, when I say these things. But, I'm a very open person. I'm not a person that tries to be a phony on TV or in my books or in any kind of magazine or any kind of interview. I just very truthful about what I have done and haven't done. And the people that want to judge me for it don't ever want to speak to me. I get it. And there's people that interviewed me and said, "Do you think it's right that you can have a second chance?" And my answer right back to them is, "Well, do you want me to just continue on crime? Then ask me which way you want me to go. Tell me every kid that I'm trying to help. What do you want them to do with their lives if you're not going to accept them?" So that's that's a good question for the people that are saying, "Well, it's too bad there is no redemption." All right, so we'll have all these young people tell them, continue on, march on, and continue to do it, because people don't want to ever give you that second chance. But just like the Bible says, and you know better than I, being a rabbi, is don't cast the first stone if you never committed sin. And we can all look at everybody's past and know they've committed sins, some more serious than others. So I'll worry about what God's going to do with me. That's His will, and whatever is going to happen, the day I pass, I guess that's the judgment.
Yeah. What do you do with the kid, whether he says it or not, who sees your life as glorified in movies, as being so wealthy, as being so powerful, as having a romantic notion of that kind of criminal life? Look at all the criminals, look at all the gang members who think that kind of power that you wanted, that kind of money that you earned, that kind of brutality that you meted out is the better way to live their lives, because it's better than what they're dealing with at home.
Because I tell it like it is. I'll tell you, it was the most fantastic life, the most adrenaline life we ever had. The adrenaline's incredible. The attention for the ego is incredible. The money, the fun, the traveling, it was great. But then I'll tell you the bad part, right? The suffering, the crying, the guilt, the tearing apart of your family, of yourself. When you go home, you're really not happy. And those are the small prints that I keep telling everybody. Yeah, all that glamorous stuff, it was great, right? And here's the best part of it all. I would never, ever, ever do that again if I had a second chance, any of it, because of the small print that they're not seeing the rest of it. So is it worth it? No, absolutely not. And some of the things you just said, I would be again. I don't want to be a liar. It was great, but it doesn't come without all the consequences of all the suffering and the destruction of yourself, your family, and others that you will never. If you're really an open person and don't lie, it's such misery for everybody. Till today, I'm still suffering misery of this wacky guy that's following me for 10 years now. I mean, it's incredible what you have to put up with because of what you did in the past, and the consequences of those actions back then are going to continue to infringe on my life forever. It's never going to go away. Every time I go out, is there somebody that wants to challenge me? Is there somebody who wants to try to get you now because they know you're not going to do anything anymore? Or, all these other things, is the suffering of your own family, the love and the hugs and kisses of all my kids for so many years. I didn't see them for a decade. Is any of this worth it? Of course not. And anybody that's lying or telling them that it is must not love their children. Any doctor, any lawyer, any ball player, any gangster, any famous actor, any musician, any astronaut, and continue on, that ever wants to put their kid on the street, obviously doesn't care at all about their child. Nothing. They don't love them. They don't care about them. They care about their own ego only, because anything I can ever say to anybody in the street is, please listen to me. Nobody knows better than me. I did so much time, so much suffering, and I went through all the physical pain. I didn't just give it, I got it also. I got hurt a lot of times, and like I said, stabbed up and battered and shot and ran over by cars and attacked, and this is not a way to live life.
Yeah.
So I hope my influence of telling them the truth is, if you're stupid enough to believe that crap, trust me, you will suffer that you never suffered before. And physical, I'm not talking about physical, because we can all overcome the physical. I'm not even talking about jails, because we can all adapt that too. It's everything else that comes in between, the emotional. And one day they'll realize it, and hopefully I'm stopping them before they realize it.
Right. John, what makes you hopeful right now?
When I get a phone call like I did last night from somebody, when I get hundreds of messages through my assistants and my team of people that say thank you, or they ask me because they're desperate for help, or a parent that is reaching out because they know that maybe I can get to their child or to their brother or sister. That makes me hopeful every day that I can do something positive that helps the next person and makes you feel 10 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times better than any dollar bill can. And, when people say that, we all want to make a living, we all want to be comfortable. And, that's, also we all want the nice things of life. But at what point? And, I'd rather have it the way I have it today anytime over what I had it years ago.
Yeah. Well, I think you're seeing your impact and how positive a human impact can be. That's a message to other people as well. I want to thank you for this conversation, of course, and for what I take to be your candor, your honesty, and my sense, as much as we can sense of another human being, of your heart, your sense of purpose right now in your life, of meaning, and of your own ability to turn things around and make a positive difference in the world. So, John, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you.
God bless you too. Thank you.
This season is produced and edited by John Alite. Content editing by Bronwyn Lipaz. Musical theme by Amots Plesner. Logo art by Janice Rudnitsky. Graphic design by Gusta Lipaz. Social media management by Morgan Shanahan and Sophie Bergeron. The Meaning Mindset with Rabbi Ron is hosted by Rabbi Ron Lipaz. Find us wherever you find your podcasts.